Dre records to being in there with on the G-Unit albums and being in there right, at the tail, like the middle tail end of Get Rich or Die Trying. I ain't never said like, yo, I wrote this certain song, or I don't give a fuck about that, my nigga. Crazy that Ye did more for me in the last 2 weeks than Drake did for me my whole career. Eminem is the only rapper that nobody ever wants a problem with, including myself, man. Eminem is like the most lyrically insane. And I used to think Eminem was better than me.
So what you saying right now?
He's not. Challenge. Hey, challenge it.
Game, you don't want to go versus against Eminem?
Yes, I do. What do you mean? Yeah, I do. The fuck you mean?
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten to a point where whenever I hear the game say something, I don't believe it. There have been so many instances where the game would say something in one interview, and then in the next interview, he'll contradict what he said. To me, the game is the kind of guy who lies about everything, right? And I know guys like this. They'll tell you a story, and while you're listening to them, you're thinking, no, this can't be true, bro. Nothing makes sense. But because they've lied to you so many times and you know who they are as a person, you expect them to lie to you. So while they're talking, you're like, I know this guy's lying to my face right now, but sometimes he buys the beers, so I'll give him a pass. Right? It's almost like you have to give the game a pass because he made some really good music. The game dropped about 10 albums, and a lot of people didn't think he would bounce back after he began beefing with 50. So as far as his career goes, the game has proven himself. But sometimes it's almost as if the game forgets that he's on camera, and we can watch him in one interview and watch him in another interview and compare notes. And we can tell, brother, you're lying, right? So the game and Wack 100 get on a Clubhouse call and they begin talking about the documentary and who wrote it. But I'll get to this in a minute. But swiftly after this conversation ends, Wack 100 says something really ridiculous. He goes on to imply that the game wrote 50's What Up Gangsta.
What up, blood? What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangsta?
Now, instead of the game saying, hold on, I didn't write that song. What are you talking about? The game didn't really speak on it.
50 wrote what you heard him write, what you heard him say on the record. Like, I don't understand what your question is. Like, when you heard 50 rap on the documentary, that's what he wrote.
Hey, hold on, wait. Look, I'm gonna speak on something you don't never speak on. What up, cuz? What up, blood? What up, gangsta? Who you think wrote that? I'm gonna leave it alone. Stop playing. Yes, he just don't be speaking. Bro just don't be beating his chest, bro. He likes a lot of shit. He can beat his chest.
What he say? I sit back. What he say?
He just
Black?
don't,
I sit
that
back.
ain't him.
Twist.
Okay, cool. So the game does an interview. And the interview is like, okay, game, did you write What Up Gangsta? And then the game says, nah, I didn't write that song. But I was in the studio when it happened and I influenced the creation of the song.
You wrote What Up Gangsta for 50.
I didn't write What Up Gangsta for 50. I was in there and part of the influence. He ain't capping. He really about that life, but so am I. So that's where we bumped heads at. But I didn't do no writing for 50. 50 ain't do no writing for me.
But here's where the story gets interesting. According to 50, Game wasn't even around when they were recording What Up Gangsta. So at this point, it becomes a question of who do you believe? 50, the guy who has a reputation for telling the truth most of the time, or the game? Now let's get into more lies that the game has told. Now let's go back to the Clubhouse interview with Wack 100 and the game. Before talking about the song What Up Gangsta, Game talks about 50's involvement in the documentary once more, and essentially says that 50 didn't really do much for him on this album. But here's where the problem lies. When the game and 50 were beefing around 2005, 50 went on to claim that he wrote most of the album, and we're talking about the documentary here. And naturally the game denied these claims, saying that he wrote the whole thing, except for 50's parts. But it's 2024 now, and thanks to YouTube and the internet, the reference tracks for the documentary have come out. And it turns out 50 did write a lot of the documentary. I mean, just the other day I heard a reference track for Higher, and I was like, not that one too, Game. That's probably one of my favorite Game tracks. And now it's not even a Game track anymore. That's a 50 Cent track.
Party get to jumping, we get to tearing up the spot. Okay, let's play my way, shorty.
Now 50 actually got to speak about his input on the documentary, and according to him, he wrote about 6 songs on the project. He wrote Higher, Special, West Side Story, Hate It or Love It, How We Do, and Church for Thugs. So essentially 50 gave the game his biggest hits, and the game repaid 50 by attacking his brand.
You talk about writing. Did you only write for G-Unit artists? Because yesterday I saw a reference track for Higher leaked.
Yeah.
And it's you doing Higher.
I did. What's the name?
6 songs on that album, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Now what makes this story even worse is that the game planned this all along. Now Jim Jones did an interview a while back, and in the interview he spoke about the game. The game came to him before he blew up on G-Unit and said that once he gets on, he's going to destroy G-Unit from the inside.
I remember that whole shit. They was telling me, yo, they about to sign me to G-Unit. You dig, but as soon as they sign me and I get platinum and all that, I'm doing what 50 did to Jai and all this type of shit. I'm like, you sure you want to do that? He's like, fuck that, blood. I like, this nigga is crazy. This is crazy.
But here's where things get even more ridiculous. After destroying the group from the inside, which was kind of a snake thing to do because without these guys, nobody would know who you are. After destroying the brand, the game was like, damn, I wish we were back together, man. I really miss the times when it was just me and 50, in the studio recording music, right? After the game went on to destroy G-Unit, he showed up in multiple interviews after that, begging for the reformation of the group, with him included.
That whole situation. Basically what I was doing was that I was just letting the homie know that it's 2010, it's a new day, and it's really time to get money. Every now and then, you gotta push it back together sometimes. So all I was saying to 50 was that, why not get out here, bring it like, make Voltron and shit, bring it back full circle and get some motherfucking money. That's what everybody wanted to have it anyway, so what I was saying was I wasn't opposed to it.
The game reminds me of certain people in my life, right? These people are impulsive, emotional, and their actions are very immature and driven by ego and pride. These are the type of people that when you're around them, you don't know what's gonna happen. And the worst part is this kind of person will attempt to destroy your life, and then they'll come back in like, hey, do you wanna be friends again? But the thing is, they don't really want to be your friend. They wanna take more from you. And that's what I think of the game every time he says he wants to reconcile with G-Unit. He just wants the bag. Now let's talk about another time the game lied, right? And believe me when I say there are so many moments that we could be here for days.
Bring it back full circle and get some motherfucking money. That's what everybody wanted to have it anyway, so what I was saying was I wasn't opposed to it.
So the game does another interview. And in this interview, he says something outlandish, right? He says that when he was beefing with 50 and he had the whole G-Unit campaign going, Jimmy Iovine paid him $1 million to stop saying G-Unot. And that's because the G-Unot campaign was hurting the brand.
A lot of people don't know this. Like 50 and Jimmy Iovine, they gave me $1 million to stop saying G-Unot. They wrote me a check. They bought it. I had to trademark the G-Unot. And you remember when I was going around with the rat and doing all that shit hurt G-Unit. You stopped seeing the candy cane tank tops and all that. The whole G-Unit, Mark Echo, all this, the shoes, all that died.
Do something really smart. He trademarked the G-Unot name, and this legally prevented the game from using G-Unot again. And the thing is, if the game decided to use G-Unot, he would have to pay 50 every time he said it. Talk about playing chess. So once again, the game is caught in another lie. And the lies continue. Here's another one. So in 2002, the game shows up to a Drink Champs interview. They get to talking and he gets liquored up. And then he says one of the most outrageous things he's ever said in his career. Kanye did more for him in 2 weeks than Dre did for him his entire career.
Crazy that Ye did more for me in the last 2 weeks than Dre did for me my whole career.
Now, this is just another case of the game saying one thing, and then another time he will say something different. You drop Dr. Dre's name in every song that you make, bro. We should make a drinking game, right? Listen to a game album and just take a shot every time Dr. Dre's name is mentioned. I'm telling you now, by the end of that album, you'll be wasted. Just gone.
You see an aftermath change, then don't ask for Dre. I'm a legend now. Fuck when I pass away.
So it's like we've heard you praise Dr. Dre over and over again. So now the game does an interview with Vlad, and Vlad asks him, so why do you say those things about Kanye and Dr. Dre? To which the game responded by saying, bro, I was drunk, man. It's Drink Champs. What am I supposed to do? Right? And I get it, the game was drunk, I mean, I've said some things I didn't mean when I was drunk. But if I tell you something when I'm drunk, it usually means I mean it.
So basically, I was
hollering at Nori them, a little inebriated. And I said some things that I meant. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna take it back. I ain't no sucker. But having Dre do anything for your project, anything in your career, touch any part of anything that you're doing in life is such a blessing that I shall not ever on that again.
So the game was drinking. Let's say we give him a pass for that, right? But this is still the case of the game saying one thing one time and then switching up his story and saying something else. And at the same time, it's like, does Game realize he's on a public forum in front of cameras? I've said this before, but you can't say Dr. Dre, your biggest influence, the man that put you in position, that guy did nothing for your career. Doesn't matter how drunk you are, you can't say things like that, you know, because the internet is forever. People are never gonna forget what you said, including Dr. Dre. He might forgive you for what he said, but he will never forget that. Now, speaking of that point, I just learned something recently about how the game got put on. Now, this comes straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the game's mouth. There was a time when the game was going to be cut from Aftermath Records, but 50 said, hold on, I can do something with the game. Give him to me. So instead of being cut from the label, the game's career was saved by 50.
50, much as I hated him 8 months ago, you know what I'm saying? Which we more than cool now. 50 was like, what game? No. Like, let me get Game. Don't cut Game. Wow. We're gonna take Game on tour. We need a member of, like, you know, G-Unit is from the West Coast. We got Buck from the South. Me, Yayo, and Banks are from the East. Like, Game would be perfect.
Now, I'm sure you all know what I think about this, right? I think we're all thinking the same thing. 50 Cent saved your career, and you repaid the favor by trying to destroy his career. And you still want to reunite with the group after everything you did? So at this point, we've all established that the Game is the type of person that will stab you in the back to get what he wants. But this is a video on how the Game lies, right? So let's get on to the next lie. So the Game does an interview with Revolt, right? And in this interview, he says something like, I'm the biggest rapper in the world and I'm #1. And yeah. I think if the Game was connected to a lie detector test, he would fail that completely. Because I don't even think the Game believes what he's saying, right? I think at this point he lies so much that he probably tricks himself into believing his own lies. I mean, come on, Game, we've all heard you say that Eminem is a better rapper than you. There's video proof of that. And I wasn't even gonna touch on this topic, but here's another case of the Game saying one thing and then switching up his story. Like, we all saw him say that Eminem is better than him.
Another question, Game, what do you think of Recovery?
Classic. I love it. Yeah.
M's back?
Eminem is Eminem. If you notice in hip hop, Eminem is the only rapper that nobody ever wants a problem with, including myself, man. Eminem is like the most lyrically insane. Even when I was going at 50 and me and Dre wasn't seeing eye to eye, man, I stayed away from the white dude, because he a problem.
He was talking about how he was going to pick fights. If he were to come at you with like a industry beef, what would you have done?
Run.
And then in another interview, he says that he's better than Eminem.
And I used to think Eminem was better than me.
So what you saying right now?
He's not. Challenge. Hey, challenge it.
Game, you don't want to go versus against Eminem?
Yes, I do. What do you mean? Yeah, I do. The fuck you mean?
At this point, it's hard to keep up with everything. So I guess now you believe that you're a better rapper than Eminem. But are you gonna switch up your story again and say that M is the better rapper? Is that coming? Is that interview coming? Or has it happened already? Maybe I missed that one. Now we've already covered about 3, 4, 5, I'm not keeping track, incidents of the Game switching up his story. But I'm telling you now, I've barely scratched the surface, man. The Game is something else. Now, as far as Game's relationship with 50 and G-Unit goes, it seems like they're cool. In fact, Tony Yayo believes that if the Game apologizes for the beef he started and for the things he said publicly, G-Unit could get back together and they could all go on tour and make money together. I mean, I'd love to see that. I'd pay money to see that.
I can't say it'll happen. I can't say it won't happen. However, from a business perspective, I'm going to attempt to make that happen.
You're going to make that happen?
I'm going to attempt to make that happen. And I mean, I think it'll be a wise business move on both parts.
You would make millions.
Oh, I mean, ridiculous. I'm thinking about tours. I'm thinking about merchandising. I'm thinking about all these other things that lacking in the industry, and this is the perfect timing for that.
But I don't think 50 needs it. 50 already has his TV shows. He went on a crazy tour that made a lot of money recently. So at this point it seems like the game needs 50 more than 50 needs the game. I mean, but it's always been that way. So yeah, the game's a liar. That's the video. Catch me in the next one.
Perfect.